Hello. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Teen News. Hello. Welcome to Black Teen News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about continued outrage and hysteria about the possible striking down of Roe v. Wade. We had a long show yesterday talking about it. There was a lot of news and reactions and stuff getting to it. And I did mention yesterday how the Democrats are obviously taking a turn toward hysteria and are trying to use this talking point that since they struck down Roe v. Wade, they could be coming for gay rights and other things like that next. When the law, the opinion anyway, it's not official as of yet. It has to be published first. But let's say nothing pretty much changes from the draft, which drafts can, by the way, and people's votes can change. So it's not a sure thing yet. We have reason to be optimistic, but it's not a sure thing yet, just FYI. But let's say it goes down the way that we believe it's going to go down. There's a literal piece in the opinion that says we are specifically talking about abortion rights and not everything else. And we want to specifically make that clear so you do not misconstrue what we're saying. Yet Biden and other folks are going out there precisely doing that. So it's amazing. I keep saying this, and Democrats get really, really mad at me when I say Democrats rely on their base being emotionally charged rather than factually informed. And it's obvious all the time that is their strategy. So we will go into something Biden said that's pretty darn radical. We played a couple clips from him yesterday. Whoopi Goldberg from On the View went on a rant. So we're gonna watch that together. Or maybe I should do that later because I know sometimes they ding me. Oh gosh. So now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I'll have to post that later. Sometimes ABC's like, this is our clip. And I'm like, it's free use. You guys play stuff all the time, but you want to ding me? I think we'll do it. Maybe we'll do it at the end to be on the safer side. We'll do it at the very end. But also the repairman who had the Hunter Biden laptop, and it became the huge thing, obviously, that everyone wanted to suppress. They said it was Russian disinformation. So he's suing Adam Schiff, and he's suing CNN and Politico and the Daily Beast for defamation. And why not? Because they ruined his life, and he's been harassed and stalked and lost his business. So yeah, this man deserves some sort of compensation, I would say. So God bless him. Nicholas Sandmann really did start a revolution as far as trying to hold these people accountable. I know Kyle Rittenhouse has started an organization to sue these folks. I don't know how many people Kyle can actually get to. Nicholas Sandmann, when he went on Fox one time talking about it, he was like, you figure out very quickly what's going to be able to go through the lawsuit and the process and everything or not. You can't just chase every single thing. But they totally lied about it being Russian disinformation. And you can't argue that there was no malice intended toward him and people who had the laptop. So Godspeed to him. But we'll get into all that today. But before we jump into everything, I do want to encourage you guys to go to blackteennews.com. Check out different content that I have on my website. I was in I've shared this a few times, but I have an article about religion and abortion and the Bible. And you guys know I don't like to make biblical arguments about it. I did post it yesterday because Biden actually used the biblical arguments in favor of abortion. He's like, people don't know. Religions say different things. I'm like, you apparently don't know what your own religion says, Biden. But I was going in a back and forth today with someone. They were on a friend's page, and then they said, stop shoving your religion down our throats. And I'm like, when did I mention the Bible? And there's tons of comments at this point, and I don't mention my religion, my religious beliefs at all in the least bit, which he's also like, and you are only a Christian because of European conquerors enslaved your family and all of this crazy stuff. I'm just like, whoa there, bigot. Calm the heck down. know. And so then they like posted a YouTube video or something. So I just posted my article in response. So anyway, you can check out articles like that I've written to debunk these crazy people. So you don't have to argue with them scripture by scripture. It covers a lot of their dumb talking points. So you can find stuff like that at blacktnews.com. There's also another one that I wrote about the moral harm of abortion when people say it's just affects the mother and the doctor and of course the baby. Well, not the doctor doesn't. I mean, he's getting paid, but the mother and the child, like it involves more than that. So I wrote a really good article piece on that. I suppose I'll share that again. And you can check out other stuff that I have. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Your support means the world to me, but it also does help Black Teen News expand and keep growing. Please consider checking out some of the merchandise on blacktnews.com, like the cool goat hoodies and the shirts. Got the Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden. People have been liking that one as of late. I'm not the victim you're looking for. The My Money, My Business, which I did make in relation to abortion, but involves a couple other things as well. So you guys can check out the merchandise. Of course, that does also help Black Teen News as well. And then you could also have like cool merch. So why wouldn't you participate in that? I do want to thank Brighton Michigan Pack. I am in their studio. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. It really doesn't work like that. But they just like uplifting conservative voices. So I appreciate the opportunity to do so. Okay, so before we jump into the news of the day, you guys know that I like to have a funny, and I did post this on Facebook already. um, but we have this Back to the Future meme, and if you've seen this film, you probably recall this scene when he was playing rock and roll, while playing the music, and it got a little heavy, and people were like, "What is that?" And he said, "I guess you guys aren't ready for that, but your kids are gonna love it." So there's the Supreme Court when Roe v. Wade gets overturned. So yeah, Americans right now are they ready for it? Well, really, people aren't ready for Roe v. Wade being overturned because they don't understand what happens when Roe v. Wade overturns, and it goes back to the state. So what's over on state laws and stuff, that's what it's going to be. So if you're in a very blue state that you love for some reason, and you're in California, and you want to have an abortion right now, you can still do that. And if you're in a place like Michigan, which Michigan has a ban, but I don't know if I heard Ben Shapiro talk about it today, and some states have snapback laws that just like snap things back into place. So I think the ban would go back, but I'm not positive. But Mississippi went to the Supreme Court saying that, hey, you shouldn't do this after 15 weeks. And I don't know if you guys have seen like sonograms or MRIs of babies at like 15. Like I saw my nephew at 14. And I've seen an MRI of a 16-week baby. They look remarkably like babies. And most Americans they don't support abortion like after like 14 weeks. So they are in line basically with what Mississippi wanted to do, not Roe v. Wade in encasing all those folks talking about like viability, where they assume viability is 24 weeks, which babies can live earlier than that. It's not like a dead set line. And I think that's a dumb argument anyway, but I'll get into that another day. I think dumb viability is a stupid standard because if you're still arguing viability, it's still inside of you. So what does it matter if it's viable? So it's dumb to me. It's dumb to me. I don't get it. Like I can kind of get it, but it just doesn't wash. A lot of their logic just doesn't wash. So I think Americans, once they are more educated on what's actually going to happen, and then we can actually deliberate state to state and have conversations and debates and so on. I think that we could do that, but Democrats are terrified of actually having to substantiate their arguments. So that's why a lot of these people lie. A lot of these people lie through their teeth. So they keep saying that Americans want to strike down Roe, don't want Roe overturned. Well, a lot of them don't understand what Roe is, and that's true with like polling and stuff too. So if people understand that it's gonna like democracy can still happen, we can still vote and have conversations about it, and that Roe is keeping states from having bans past time when people are comfortable with it. Most people are comfortable with bans after like 15 weeks and stuff. Don't believe in late term abortions. So Roe v. Wade, people understand that they'll be okay with it. Plus, it's a terrible legal ruling. There's that. And we talked about that quite a bit yesterday. Played Ginsburg's opinions on it. Played Scalia talking about it. So it's not a good ruling, and if it's gone and struck down, that's great, because it didn't make any sense. It was just terrible, terrible ruling, and we're going to have to continue having our debates within states. But Democrats, like I said, are concerned about that they don't even talk about or acknowledge the humanity of the child. Don't want to pin down when its life begins, even though it's at conception, the right to life. They don't want to talk about that. It's only a topic of a woman's health, woman's decision, woman's body, women's choice, etc. But it's not. They don't want to mention the baby. They don't want to talk about how much human decency and or moral consideration we should have towards it. So when you're having a debate, make sure that you make people acknowledge and pin down some hard stuff in the sand. Don't let people just say, well, it's about women's health. It's a health care. What, is the baby healthier after the abortion? So make sure they acknowledge. Make sure they acknowledge that stuff, because those are their tactics. But on top of like the dodge tactics, you have straight up lies. So let me play President Biden talking about this possible decision and what's going to happen.
What happens if you have a state changes the law saying that children who are LGBTQ can't be in classrooms with other children? Is that legit under the way the decision is written? What are the next things that are going to be attacked? Because this MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history, in recent American history.
First of all, he has not commented on the leak. And the fact that he hasn't commented on the leak and condemned it, and I haven't seen any major Democrat really condemn it. I've seen some verified checkmark people who've like said, oh, this is a great American hero, and if this is what they want to do, let's burn it down. So I've seen that, but I haven't seen any true condemnation from the left over this leak, unless if it's someone on the right who leaked it and they did it so judges would jump on the opinion and commit to it, then they think that's bad. But if this person leaked it to intimidate the justices to change their minds or to force Democrats' hand as far as different legislation and whatever, then that's all good stuff. But if the Democrats cared about societal norms, they should be like, this is terrible, and this person should lose their law license, and they should maybe go to jail for leaking these documents. So I don't see Biden saying that. So also, as far as extreme, Biden is far more extreme now than he used to be. He used to be against using federal funding for abortions. But as soon as like Bernie Sanders and started pressuring about it, and Twitter people started, tweeting angrily about it, he decided to shift his long time position about federal funds not being able to go toward abortion. Something that he like bragged about, that he was able to like vote down on stuff. And he also believed in trying to strike down Roe in 1982, or at least finding a way around it and making like amendments and stuff, I believe, to the Constitution. So Biden has changed a lot, and people can change, but when he says people are radical, he's had a radical shift. A lot of people have had a lot of radical shifts. Democrats have used to say safe, legal, and rare, like Hillary Clinton said that, and that was what they used to say. And then when she ran in 2016, which I played that yesterday too, she's like, an unborn person doesn't have any rights in this country, how it is right now. And to clarify, they're like, This on The View, they asked, like, so you mean a child, hours until it's born, has no rights? And she's like, under the law, that is correct. So when you talk about radical, their side is very radical, and their side has really really moved on the issues, really really extraordinarily moved on the issues. And that radical position that they are trying to protect right now is ending the life of little babies. And if you call them babies, even though a fetus is just an unborn human baby, and fetus is gonna be other types of things, as what mammals or whatever, but we are talking about humans, so is what it is. They get mad. If you call it a child, people get mad. A child is just, there's two ways to refer to a child. You can, well, I guess there's multiple definitions, but two ways that are relevant. Someone who is like under the age of like maturity would be a child, so that would qualify. But also more in like a more colloquial use, like I am my mother's child. I'm obviously an adult, but I am still her child. So when you are talking about abortion, you are saying the mother's child. That will always be a relevant and accurate term. But if you use that, they find that it's too, I don't know, compassionate, too humane. It connects them too much to their humanity. So they're like, so that when you use terms like that, you're trying to use manipulative tactics. That's what they'll say. That's what they'll say. That's what they like if you use that term, but if they bring up like, what about that 9-year-old who was molested by her toothless uncle? Like they'll jump to that, and I'm like, those situations are like less than 5%, according to Guttmacher or Institute. But you want to use that to justify like 99% of abortions. And who's manipulating who? So again, Biden, they're trying to make it so if this is struck down, then it'll lead to other things that you do sort of privately being struck down and undoing, like gay marriage and all sorts of other things, and you can have whatever opinion on those rulings, but the court did make it clear that their ruling, at least this opinion, and again, it's not published yet, that they have no intention of striking down those sorts of things. So, I showed this yesterday, but this is a was he Vox or maybe Vox? It's a leftist reporter. He said Alito's draft opinion explicitly criticizes Lawrence versus Texas, legalizing sodomy, and Oberfell versus Hodges, legalizing same-sex marriage. He says that, like abortion, these decisions protect phony rights that are not deeply rooted in history. And Biden and other Democrats have been going around repeating this. This guy got so many retweets, and he got called out by folks on the right. So like hours later, he did start like adding a couple things. Well, let me explain this a little further. After it's a little late, bro. After you purposely like cut off things that would debunk what you're talking about. But Alito specifically wrote something in the piece, unable to show concrete reliance on Roe and Casey themselves. The Solicitor General suggests that overruling those decisions would threaten the court's precedents, holding that due process clause protects other rights. Brief for United States as amicus curiae, citing Oberfell versus Hodge, Lawrence versus Texas, Griswold versus Connecticut. That is not correct for reasons we have already discussed, as even as a Casey plurality recognized, abortion is a unique act because it terminates life or potential life, inherently different from marital intimacy, marriage, or procreation. And to ensure that our decision is not misunderstood or mischaracterized, we emphasize that our decision concerns the constitutional right to abortion and no other right. Nothing in this opinion should be understood to cast doubt on precedents that do not concern abortion. So, guys, we talked about this yesterday, but this is Biden's going out there and repeating crazy stuff, saying what happens if they gotta take gay kids out the classroom. Like, where is that coming from? So this is a hysteria they're pushing out there now to inflame and enrage their base, especially the ones who are excited and stuff are really the progressive base who are into all this kind of stuff, but they're trying to enrage them and scare them and to get them to, I don't know, go on TikTok, scare all these other kids and hope they go out and vote because they're too silly and immature and frankly stupid to go look up this stuff on their own. And we saw this with Florida's parental rights and education bill, people literally doing videos, people with millions of followers just screaming on TikTok, don't say gay, we can't say gay anymore. So that this is what the Democrats want, because they cannot just come out with their own arguments, have merit, and be persuasive. The fear is persuasive. The lies are persuasive. And I'm not saying the right doesn't use like fear and stirring of emotions to be persuasive, but the Democrats cannot use facts. They lie all the time with big things, really, really big things. Like for example, Obamacare is a really famous one. The architect of Obamacare literally said it wouldn't have got passed if people had known what it really was. And the fact that there was all this sort of political transparency with what was actually in the bill got it passed. And he accredited it to the stupidity of the American voter. That is not good. It's not good if you cannot make your case to the American people. And it's unfortunate that we allow our politicians to do this to us. We can be mad at them and the system all we want, but we are the ones who are in charge. We speak with our votes. And we allow them to manipulate us like this. Not maybe folks like me and you, but at large. So yeah, they're bad people for doing this. But shame on the people who allow them to do this. This should outrage every single Democrat. It should outrage people that they lied about the Florida parental rights and education bill, and it should outrage people that people are lying about Roe v. Wade and what's going to happen as a result of it being struck down, if it is indeed struck down. And especially if you are an LGBT person, because you are the person that they are really trying to target and to trick and to engage. Now, if you just want to engage because you're pro-life, you're pro-choice and whatever, fight that fight, okay? Like, I don't agree with you, obviously. We can meet on the battlefield and you don't probably have like a real consistent standard, so I can take you down anyway. But you do that if that's what you feel is appropriate. But don't let someone lie to you. They literally took the time to write that we don't want our opinion to be misconstrued. So they actually wrote that in the opinion piece to be probably as least controversial as possible. Of course, this is going to cause controversy, but they're literally making stuff up. And it's a shame that the president of the United States, who believed in decency and unifying people, is spreading lies to tear people apart. But if you expected something different from Joe Biden, who lied about who implied that Mitt Romney, of all people, was going to put black people back in chains. I don't know what to tell you. Like, Mitt Romney said something about Biden. I don't remember specifically what it was. He was like, I'm disappointed in the president. I'm like, this man implied you're going to put black people back in chains. Like, what were you expecting from this man? That's not something you just kind of get over, in my opinion, but whatever. Whatever, Mr. Romney. You're just a tool yourself. So be on the lookout when people spread this sort of misinformation, and know how to fight back. That snippet is really important, and they wrote in there obviously for a reason, and it's unfortunate that you have Biden and people lying about it. But that's where we are right now in our political world. All right. By the way, Dave Chappelle, I don't have a clip prepared. I think I just kind of got lost when I was in my prep. But Dave Chappelle was on stage telling jokes, as Dave Chappelle does. And he was bombarded. He was attacked. And I don't mean like Will Smith come up and like slap you attack, which that was bad. That was awful. But I don't know. It sounded maybe like an okay smack, but at the same time, like, I kind of think about Pokemon, the video game, when it's like use like slap, and it's like didn't seem that effective. That's what it kind of seemed like to me. Because it's not like the man was laid out or something. He's just like, wow, I just got slapped the bleep out of by Will Smith, you know? This man like like rammed into Dave. Rammed into Dave. So this isn't a good thing. And someone in my news feed brought up the fact that this is like an after effect of like Will Smith like attacking a comedian over a joke. And perhaps so, because Will Smith isn't really facing any sort of, well, he didn't get charged. I mean, Chris Rock didn't want to charge him or whatever. They let him stay there and keep his Oscar. Now, that man who attacked Dave Chappelle is a separately crazy person, and obviously he made his own decisions, etc. But both, you know, did assault people over speech. Like that's not an okay thing. So someone said that Will Smith should have gave back his Oscar. I still think maybe I feel like the Oscar should have took away Will Smith's Oscar, but at the same time, if they gave it to someone else, everyone else would be like, that's Will Smith's Oscar. He like earned that though, and everyone knows that he won it. They should, after it happened, they should not have given him the Oscar. That's what should have happened. You know, they should have like they should have escorted him out, like had some kind of quick meeting. I don't know, had Chris Rock come back and tell some more jokes or something, like delay it as much as they could, and then give it up to some kind of runner up or whatever. But to give him the Oscar, they can continue to make that situation worse. And then they barred him from going to the Oscars for like 6-10 years or something like that. Okay. Him and Jada boycotted the Oscars not too long ago because the hashtag Oscars so white. She's like offended because Will wasn't nominated. Like the whole world revolves around you. So was that really much of a punishment? You know, and you could say, well, Will suffered enough because he was so embarrassed, or it was embarrassing, or just because of the big ordeal that it was. He physically assaulted a man and then got an Oscar. So maybe Chris Rock should have went ahead and prosecuted. Maybe he would have felt like that was a punk move, or maybe people asked him not to. I don't know. Maybe he's still gonna sue. I don't know. But it has been another incident now where a comedian was attacked, and it was Dave Chappelle. And a lot of people have been upset with Dave Chappelle and some of his content, particularly when he talks about the alphabet people, I think, as he has called them, but I've referred to them that as well, I suppose. And he hasn't obviously been attacked like that. But that has happened now. So Dave, I know Dave carries, but that happened quick. So I'm sure he has security probably too. But it wasn't no, like Pip walked up to the stage and slapped. He got like tackled. So this is a really bad place where we are right now, when people are so offended. And when I had conversations about the Jada Smith like G.I. Jane joke, which I didn't even feel like was a great joke, and people were like, well, aren't some things so offensive? And I'm like, don't you think it's more offensive that she accused like the Oscars of being racist or whatever with the hashtag Oscars so white and boycotting it because it was too white? Like, isn't that kind of more offensive? Like, because she's accusing like the Academy and people participating in like and being like racist. Like, isn't that the implication there? And there's also the implication of like, what if people, because you assume that you're voting for people based off of the merit of their skill. And so if it just so happened that it was so many white people that got nominated, either they earned it or they didn't. So I find that to be far more insulting. And people are kind of like, yeah, but you shouldn't say it. So people give and they get. People give and they get. But when I was a kid, you know, we did peer mediation, and we were taught like not to let things like that bother us or get to us, or to find kind of more productive ways to channel that when someone's coming at us like that verbally, not physically, but you know, to not expel that sort of violence. And there was also this really old saying, maybe some of you are younger than me and don't remember a time like this. This might be like an ancient sort of phrase, and I don't know if it'll trigger you and cause you to run under your covers or something, but bear with me. It was sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And even if you say that, like, I think the last time I posted on social media, it became like a big thing, like, oh, words can hurt you. Like, they can if you choose to allow them to hurt you, sure. And some speech is like incitement and illegal, especially if it can lead to physical violence. But if you watch like Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro or whatever, when they go on college campuses, people will accuse them of their speech being violence, and they'll ask like people who say that when they're doing Q&A, like, well, what did I say that was violent? And they don't have an answer. They just didn't like what they had to say. Like a man is a man and a woman is a woman. And they're like, that's violence. Speech is violence. So we can't get to a place in our society when it's just okay to like do that. Now, am I saying that violence is never the answer? I didn't say that. But these aren't good examples. These are not good examples. Okay, let's go on to the next story with this laptop repairman. So the Daily Beast, Adam Schiff, CNN, Politico, and are being all sued by this repairman, and this is from the New York Post. The Delaware computer repairman who blew the whistle on the Hunter Biden laptop filed a multi-million-dollar defamation suit Tuesday against Democratic Rep. Adam Schiff, CNN, the Daily Beast, and Politico, saying they falsely accused him of peddling Russian disinformation. The former shop owner, John Paul Mac Isaac, decided to fight back after losing his business and being harassed for 18 months by big tech, the media, and Delaware locals in President Biden's home state. Oh, Delaware Biden fans don't believe in being kind and decent. I thought that's what he ran on. Oh. After fighting to reveal the truth, all I want now is for the rest of the country to know that there was a collective and orchestrated effort by social media and mainstream media to block a real story with real consequences for the nation, the 45-year-old Mac Isaac told the Post. This was a collision led by 51 former pillars of the intelligence community and backed by words and actions of a politically motivated DOJ and FBI. He continued, I want this lawsuit to reveal that collusion and, more importantly, who gave the marching orders. Mac Isaac came to legally own the laptop after Biden's son Hunter dropped it off at his store for repairs in April 2019 and never came back. The material on the laptop has raised serious questions about what Biden knew of his son's overseas business deals, during which he and the president's brother, Jim Biden, often invoked his powerful name. Mac Isaac handed over a copy of the laptop's hard drive to FBI in December 2019, and 8 months later, alerted then President Donald Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, who provided a copy of the hard drive to the Post. You know, this story, we remember that it was crazy, right? I mean, it's so insane, and not insane because it wasn't true and stuff, but it is an insane story. And so again, when I've said this before, when I first heard it, I'm like, what? That sounds weird, like kind of sketchy. But again, things always make sense when you put into perspective that Hunter's a crackhead and he's lost like 3 laptops. I'm just like, I love my computer so much. Like it's a necessity in my life, and I just can't imagine dropping it off at a laptop repair shop and never picking it up again. Maybe he couldn't remember where he left it. Maybe he was like high out of his mind or something and just let it go. But to have like so much information on a laptop with such serious emails and etc., including like the smoking and the whoredom and the prostitutes and whatever, there's so much stuff that was on it. And to just leave that somewhere, that is unfathomable to me. That is a national security threat right there, especially since he had like joint bank accounts to his dad. And Oh my gosh, this is such a crazy thing. This story would still be nonstop today if this was about Donald Trump Jr. And I know Donald Trump Jr. knows that, and that probably has to like eat at him, man. Like if that was, he's like, if that was me, they, there would have been a third impeachment, I'm sure. If that was Donald Trump Jr. and some of the stuff that they found within the laptop, especially knowing that Biden was lying continuously on the campaign trail about his what he knew about his son's business dealings. They were obviously intertwined. Not just because 10% went to the big man, not just because Hunter flew with his dad, you know, on like trips where he obviously was conducting business, you know, but also they had like joint accounts, and Hunter was paying for some stuff, and there was one email where like Hunter like was owed some money from his dad, so they just like gave him Biden's like tax return money or something, and um Hunter's like partner or somebody who had like access to that money, so they just gave it to Hunter. I'm like, this is all very odd. So I can't say that it's not relevant, can't say it doesn't matter, but people wanted to pretend it was because it hurt them. It would hurt them in an election if people knew this stuff. So you did have all these people saying it was Russian disinformation and coming for this laptop owner, and to think that he did the right thing. He gave it to the FBI, probably didn't hear anything back, you know, and was concerned about some of the stuff that he saw on it, I'm certain, and then decided to give it to someone else because you you give them a laptop. And again, he gave it to them in 2019. So he gave them the laptop in 2019 to the FBI and hasn't heard anything. And then he's like, well, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and give it to Giuliani and see what happens. Let me just want to check that date again. December 2019, 8 months later. 8 months later, he gave it to Rudy Giuliani. And of course, when all the stuff started breaking out, that was like the October-ish surprise, right? And they did not want that story to stick, so they just lied about what it was. And unfortunately, this man has been harassed. He people came at him. Apparently, he's lost his business. So I'm glad he's going after them. And you cannot argue that they didn't lie about it. You can't argue that they didn't do that. I guess the best they can do is argue that they believe that it was, and they didn't mean anything malicious when they spread that false information. But considering that he's suing news organizations, I don't know how that's going to fly for them. And Adam Schiff is such a bad, creepy little dude. So I hope he gets what's coming to him as far as these lawsuits. So Godspeed to this man. It's awful that the Bidens have claimed this victim, but I'm glad he's fighting back. Someone needs to fight back for sure. For sure. Okay, last thing I want to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and play this Whoopi Goldberg view thing. Again, sometimes they're kind of, Facebook is kind of will ding you and stuff with a copyright thing, even though it's fair use. And one time they're like, we're not allowing you to do that. I'm like, come on, it's clearly fair use. I'm criticizing it. It's a political thing. It's a political show, but why would the mouse want me to be able to do that? But here's her rant about Roe v. Wade.
I will tell you, this is my body. But I will tell you, this is my body. And nobody, you got people telling me I got to wear a mask or don't wear a mask or do this. Everybody wants to tell me what to do, but you won't let me make my decision about my body. You are not the person to make that decision. My doctor and myself and my child, that's...
Wait a second. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Did you guys catch this? She said, it's her decision, her doctor, and her child. I'm pretty sure we do not ask for a child's consent before we decide to brutally murder it. when I mention that it is brutal murder, but well, it's not murder because it's legal, so we'll give you that. It is homicide. Technically, it's homicide. Um, People seem to have a problem with that. Um, but if you think about the ways that you do have an abortion, one is like through like suffocation, you deprive them of their nutrients. So there's that way. That's what you do pretty much the majority of them. The second way is like brutal mutilation, whether you're doing like the suction thing or if you have to use like forceps and stuff, or like lethal injection where you might have to like administer a drug to stop the heart, and then you might have to do other things like rip up, crush its skull and other sort of things. And you could say, well, if you do it early enough, maybe they can't feel it. And I'm like, if a serial killer was I don't know, gave you something to make you not feel, would you be okay with it? So I think brutal is a accurate way to describe it, but people get offended. You can be offended. I'm offended by practice. So children don't consent to that. So she slipped with that. Of course, the problem, Whoopi, is that it's not your body. It is happening in your body. But there's another body in your body. Like if you have a son, and I believe I have heard that Whoopi has had some, so I'm maybe, and a lot of people, oh jeez, there was like some sound that just popped up. So a lot of people are very in tuned and I guess motivated and feel like they have skin in the game because they in the past have had one, and they feel like they have to validate what they did. So people saying that it's wrong, it is a reminder that they did something that was wrong, and they don't want to believe that it was wrong. A lot of these people don't want to even believe that it was alive, that it was a child, that it had any sort of moral value or whatever. So that is where a lot of these people are coming from. Like a lot of it is ignorance, but a lot of it is also pain. So there's that, but it's obviously not your body. There's another body inside of your body. Okay. If a woman gets pregnant, like my sister just had a boy not too long ago, she didn't suddenly have a penis. It was his penis inside of him. And obviously the point of the abortion is to kill the child, remove it from your body. You can't just have a dead corpse, and it would be very dangerous. And so they don't start removing your limbs and stuff when they do that procedure. It's their body that they take out. So you want to talk about bodily autonomy. Bodily autonomy, just FYI, this is a definition. You making decisions about your life, your future, your body, you. That's bodily autonomy. And you can exercise that when you are deciding to have sex or not have sex, whether you are protected or not protected, whether you're having birth control, he's wearing a condom, whatever. Those are all decisions that you make using your agency and your bodily autonomy. Now, when you actually have engaged in procreation and the child has been created, you're not making the choice whether you're going to be a parent or not. You're making the choice whether or not you're going to terminate your child. You can't just wipe them out of existence like they never existed. So there's that. But abortion is two bodies, two lives, and two futures, and deciding to in that future, in that life, and then expelling them from your body. That's what it is. So you can't go from a purely bodily autonomy situation because unless you can make the good case on why the baby doesn't deserve any sort of rights. And I haven't heard a very good argument, I gotta say. And all the time I've been talking about this and arguing about this, debating this, etc. Not one that is consistent enough. The pro-life position is it's a life at conception. Obviously, scientifically, we know that. And it should have rights, the right to life, when it is a human being with a life. And obviously that origin is at conception. So it's a very consistent opinion, and that's why I think it's the most superior one. Someone today told me, actually, it was several people, that it basically it's just the woman's choice that should be able to decide whether or not it has rights or not, because we were having a discussion on if it doesn't have any rights, because the first people are saying it doesn't have any rights until it's born. I said, well, what about in a case like Scott Peterson? He murdered his wife and she was pregnant, so he was charged for her death and also the death of the baby. So I asked, like, do you believe in situations like that a person should be charged for the baby dying? And people said that they should be charged, but it's different than abortion because she wants to have the baby. I'm like, that is the most narcissistic, crazy thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, you cannot decide someone's rights based solely on wantedness. You can't do that. You are not a god. Or like, come on. What gives you the audacity and and the authority for such a thing? And you cannot tell me that a woman's choice is so sacred and so important, but then ignore all the choices that she made up until the point of where procreation happened. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I'm too irresponsible and or whatever to see this through to the end. So there's just one bad argument after another. So my body, my choice doesn't make sense. It's obviously a different body and it's a human being. Now, if it's not a human being, what is it? Is it property? Are you going to argue that human beings are property? Because I didn't actually, we led to some pretty bad things before in the past when that was the case. So is it a human being that deserves rights or not? And again, I have not heard a good argument on why it shouldn't. So I know Whoopi's angry and people are sharing this with the flames and stuff like, oh, Whoopi's going off. Whoopi's also not making a good argument. She's just, I understand her passion or anger. But it's just anger. It's just anger.
Who makes the decision? And one of the things I really want to point out before we go is the reason abortion came about. Women in this country lived forever with it being illegal, okay? Women, when they decide something is not right for them, they're going to take it into their own hands. Well,
okay, so that was also something that was like Alito broke down, which a lot of people are like, this is just a societal sort of norm and tradition now, like Roe v. Wade. And so a lot of people are like, we can't strike this down. So Alito was like, no, a lot of places had this ban before. So it's people just expect that this is just the way that things are and they need to remain. Like, that's actually not like our tradition. So he broke that down and she just admitted like it was illegal. So thanks for that. And it was illegal because again, you don't have the right to just take someone's life like that. And most people would think that's pretty heinous, but let's go on.
We got tired of tripping over women in bathrooms, public bathrooms, who were giving themselves abortions because there was nowhere safe, nowhere clean, nowhere to go. This law came about because people wanted people to have somewhere safe and somewhere clean. It has nothing to do with your religion. This is not.
Okay, so before she goes on, like, to the more sort of bigoted sort of stances and stuff. I mean, I've heard stories of women saying that their grandmother, great grandmother, passed away from these abortions. But she's right that women did do illegal abortions. But think about the time, like 60s, 70s or whatever, when women might have been really doing this, and people might be trying to do it now, but I want to give you the impression that after abortion is illegal, that there would just be this wave of women doing this everywhere. We have a lot more access to birth control than we did back then. Like Margaret Sanger, she wasn't even like I know everyone like dislikes her, right? And she does have a eugenics past. But the man who took over Planned Parenthood was the one who was more gung ho about it. Margaret Sanger, she was in birth control. You know, people really, really credit her to that becoming a big wave. She also like had testing. I think maybe it was in Puerto Rico, if I'm not mistaken, where they didn't actually give people like real consent on what could happen to them. So still a bad person, okay? Who was a eugenicist, who did want to limit the population of the poor, the feeble-minded, and minorities. That's still all true. But her big thing was birth control. But we do have access to birth control. We have a lot of access to birth control. You can go buy it. You can, if you're most insurance plans or whatever, if you're working, they a lot of them will cover that. Condoms are cheap. Abstinence is free. I know I freak out people when I mention that, but would you rather have a baby or not? So the circumstances that which she's describing in the past are not the same circumstances of today. There are also waiting lists to adopt. So if you can just hold on for 9 months, your baby can find a home. And I know some people don't want to live with thinking about their kid out there, or maybe they're concerned about foster care, which is actually different than when you're in foster care. It's more like you're being a ward of the state when they like remove a child from a situation and their goal is to reunify the unit. It's not actually the same. People bring it up all the time in abortion debates. It's not a good excuse to kill a baby. So there's a lot more options out there than there used to be. So this hysteria about women having to do this or going back to a time of that isn't realistic. Is not realistic in the least bit. What I would like to hope to happen with if abortion just became like snap of the fingers illegal everywhere is I would like to think that women would just make better decisions. Like we talk about women's choices, but what about them actually being accountable for the choices that they make? Because a lot of abortion, if you look at reasons why women have abortions, most of them are out of reason. They're not because of the super rare circumstance of someone unfortunately being sexually assaulted or the life of the mother being in jeopardy. Vast majority of which it's still a life regardless of how it comes into existence. But women do it because they don't feel that they're ready, and women do it because they don't have the money for it, or women feel that they want to finish school, or they because of work, or because they don't want to be an unwed mother. But 86% of women who have abortions are women who are not married. So these are all things that are done by your choices. Like you talk about the woman's choice, a woman's choice. It's your choice when you want to go to school, what job you have, and it's also your choice when you're screwing around during those times. And if you're making sure that your partner is using a condom, those are your choices. All right, fellas, maybe you can't always trust when she's using birth control, but you can choose when you're using that condom. Condoms don't fail that often. I've heard actually, and did interview a woman who was a virgin who lost her virginity, and they had an incident, and she got impregnated, and her boyfriend. I think boyfriend is a really loose term though. I don't know why she slept with this guy, but he actually made the abortion appointment for her. So she called like the clinic. I don't know if it was a Planned Parenthood, but she called the clinic to cancel it, and they're like, you can't cancel it. Yeah, you have to come in to cancel it. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't obviously make sense because she just always should not show up for the appointment. So she went in to cancel it. But they probably tell women that and to persuade them, because she knew at this point that her baby could feel pain, and she asked about it, and they're like, no, they don't feel pain. And they did kind of ask questions like, how are you going to take care of it and other stuff like that to instill her with fear. But she did have her mom and other people who were a good base that was like an unthinkable sort of thing. So yeah, I guess they can fail, but it's not likely. It's not likely. So when women, you can't choose, be like, I'm having sex right now and I'm going to get pregnant. You can't control your body in all those sorts of ways, but you can control if you're going to have sex. So I would like to hope that women in general would just make better decisions about when they procreate and who they procreate with. Because a lot of these young women, you're probably sleeping around with making soul ties with dead weights. Again, 86% of women are unmarried when they have an abortion. So, Whoopi Goldberg talking about what used to happen on bathroom floors and etc. It's not going to happen like that. not especially not in the hysteria sort of masses that they're describing. Also, we're not sure how often that actually was happening. I'm not trying to say that it didn't happen. Obviously, it did happen sometime. But the founders, the founders of NARAL, there was Larry Lader and Bernard Nathanson. So Bernard Nathanson ended up having a conversion after we ended up having a Catholic conversion, but he decided to become pro-life after the invention of the sonogram. And he's like, oh shoot, this is monstrous. So I'm not really sure in our developed nation with all this technology and stuff that we have that we still have such aggressive progressive views on abortion, especially like in California, DC, New York, Colorado, Vermont. But it is what it is right now. But the person who was behind NARAL, this pro-abortion group, was able to see that this was a monstrosity. But he ended up confessing to some things. So I wrote this. This is from a piece that I wrote about the societal harm of abortion. You can find this at blacktnews.com. The abortion industry rose to power and remains through the manipulation of women. Bernard Nathanson, the co-founder of NARAL, admitted abortion activists sensationalized the effects of illegal abortion and fabricated polls which indicated that 85% of the public favored unrestricted abortion when we knew it was only 5%. He also said when NARAL spoke of illegal abortion deaths, it was always 5,000 to 10,000 a year. I confess that I knew these figures were totally false. But they just knew that the press and the media and stuff wouldn't go out of their way to correct them. Larry Lader was the other co-founder of NARAL, and his book was cited in the infamous Roe v. Wade court cases several times. So these people are liars, built lies with their organization for pro-choice stuff, and they got quoted in Roe v. Wade. They successfully manipulated the population. Later's ideas on abortion were even extreme for Margaret Sanger, and Planned Parenthood saw a shift after Alan Guttmacher became president. Guttmacher also served as vice president of the American Eugenics Society. So again, that article is at blacktnews.com if you haven't read that. When people say abortion doesn't affect other people, I think it does, especially, and it's a great societal harm to the United States. Obviously other countries as well, but America, it's pretty amazing how strongly people feel about being able to do this. Again, women have abortions mainly out of convenience, and I know people get really upset when you say that, because I don't mean that it's not a hard decision, which people get to. I'm sure it's a hard decision. It should be a hard decision because it's taking a life. If it was just a clump of cells, a ball of goo, and deserved no moral consideration, then you wouldn't lose sleep at night. You wouldn't have to have the regret. But it is bigger than what the abortion clinics tell you. Let's go on.
Not a religious issue. This is a human issue. If you care about me as a human being, you should know three things. Getting an abortion is not easy. Making that decision is not easy. It's not something people do lightly. It's not something that you can just do. It is a hard, awful decision.
Again, if it deserves no moral consideration, if it's not a life, why is it hard? Why is it hard? I understand that it is hard, but there's some kind of inconsistency here. There's some kind of inconsistency here. I'm not of the opinion that women are psychopaths and they just go out and they just do this for funsies, which I'm sure there's, I don't know, maybe one or two people, I guess. I've heard of women doing it for spite, like they were with a guy and the guy didn't want to be with them anymore, or they found out there's a case where a woman cheated on a man and he didn't want to be with her anymore, so it was his baby, but she went out and had an abortion. So or at least we assume it was his baby. So there's awful women out there for sure. But I don't assume that most women are just like waking up one day like, oh sure, let me do that. But there are women who like kind of prep themselves like, oh yeah, if I get pregnant, I'm going to do that. But that just because you feel bad about it doesn't make it not monstrous. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it right. And it certainly doesn't mean that it's something that you should do. And if you do feel awful about it, why don't you just take a step back and ask, is it something that you should do? Is it something that you should do if you're that torn up about it? That is your conscience like knocking, scratching at the door for the last possible second saying, perhaps you shouldn't do this. Perhaps you shouldn't do this. So I'm not under the impression that it's an easy thing for women, but you still do it out of convenience. Like you can make it work. You can make it work. And there are people who feel like, oh, gosh, I found about this a young woman who had one not too long ago, and I heard when it was explained, they were like, oh, they just felt like, they couldn't handle it, and they were kind of too immature. And I'm like, you can give it up for adoption. You can try to do something to make it work. Or hope sometimes motherhood progresses you in a positive direction that will change the course of your life in a very, very good direction. I've had a friend who said her son literally changed her life. Like she believed she was on a path of self-destruction. And if she had not had her son, it would have totally, she would have killed herself. Not like deliberately, like, taken her life, but just the way that she was going. So serving someone else, self-sacrifice, responsibility, people undermine how much we need that as a society. And it's sickening that they want to, I don't know, beat this out of us. Something that we really need. I don't hear pro-choice arguments that don't equate to, and I said this yesterday, the Hook scene when he's like, I want a puppy, I want a pony, me, I, or Veruca Salt in Charlie Chocolate Factory or Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory or whatever, when she's like, I want the world, I want the whole world. Well, you can't get everything that you want. And when you bring a child into this world, the least you can do is not take their life. That is the very least that you can do. For 9 months. And I'm not trying to undercut how difficult it is on the body. And by the way, if your justification for his abortion is maternal death, that is such a rare, it's an unfortunate and sad thing whenever it happens, but it's not a rational fear, not enough to go out and have an abortion. It's really not. Especially not to justify other 99 cases. And it's really not why women get abortions. So I'm sorry, Whoopi. I'm sorry to the women out there who feel, I know you feel bad. But I think that's telling you something. And if you just think about it a little bit more logically, but there are women who have had abortions and they can't see beyond what they've done because they'd have to admit what they've done and come to terms with that. So I don't doubt she's upset and fiery about this. It still doesn't justify it.
That people make. And if you don't have the wherewithal to understand that, to start this conversation with, I know how hard this must be for you. If you're starting it by telling me I'm going to burn in hell, then you're not looking out for me as a human being, whether I subscribe to your religion or not. And that is not okay. We will be right back.
Yeah, so you shouldn't go with that. You certainly shouldn't lead in with that. And unless you're like some kind of like Twitter troll or something, most people who have these debates really don't lead with you're gonna burn in hell or bring up religion and stuff at all. I don't like to bring it up because it gets in the weeds and then people just assume. And I guess suppose you can discern that. But I don't use my religion in pro-life arguments. And I think you should be compassionate with people, but I also think you should be honest with people. And I think people should be honest with themselves. The reason why we have the abortion industry so prevalent today is because of misinformation, because so many women, I mentioned this yesterday, so many women actually do not have true informed consent. They are told to devalue their child. They've been conditioned. You have to understand this is a long time conditioning that's happened over the years. Like she used to talk about how it was banned everywhere, illegal everywhere. Um, and feminists used to not before this, like Larry Lader, Bernard Nathanson, they campaigned to have women change their opinions on abortion by lying to them. They lied about public support about abortion, and they tried to pull at their heartstrings about how many women were doing this illegally. And people try to still do that today. So they were able to dupe feminists into this. Um, which I was thinking about this earlier today. I don't see how you can claim to be a feminist and believe that you need abortion in order to attain your dreams, to survive, to compete in the workplace. Because feminists today say it's about the fight for equality, but you apparently don't think you are equal. Now, men and women are different. They play different roles in life, and they complement each other well through natural design or intelligent design, whatever you want to say. But we complement each other very well. We're equal, but we're different. But if you truly believe that you need to have access to take the life of your child in order to be equal to a man and to compete with a man, I don't see how you can claim that you're a feminist. And we're not just talking about taking your son's lives, but your daughter's lives as well, and being for that. I don't see how that's how you believe women are equal if that's what you fight for, or if that's what the root of what you believe. And Live Action has this great video about how men, some pretty heinous men, were the ones behind pushing abortion, and how it's historically just hurt women. And I can't remember this feminist name, but there's a feminist who sued her employer because she was discriminated against because she was pregnant. And so this feminist ended up being duped into supporting abortion based on lies and other stuff like that. Um, and she ended up coming to regret supporting that movement. But that they made such a great point that this belief that you do need abortion in order to compete with men and be equal to men goes against her original fight. That you shouldn't be discriminated against because of motherhood. So it's really not it shouldn't be thought of this huge detriment to your life. And also pregnant women, they still participate in society. They're still can achieve their dreams. Maybe they got to be out of the office for a little while. Um, you know, work from home a little bit. Got to figure some stuff out. Got to, I don't know, be on the set with a huge purse or something if they're an actress. But to just think that your whole life is going to stop, or it's her child's going to be some huge detriment, you don't understand again how much responsibility and loving another person can really change your life for the good. As the Bible says, it's better to give than to receive. But so much of these arguments are about, like I said, me, I. Because it's not like people don't believe, and this is like the last thing I'm going to say, then I'm going to close out because I am like over my mark. But um, people believe that we do have some kind of moral obligation to each other, because a lot of these people believe in free healthcare. They believe, which isn't free, right? Someone has to pay for it. They want the government to pay for it, but our taxpayer dollars pay for it. So they want that. They want free college. They want maternity leave and all this other kind of stuff. So they do believe that we have a moral obligation to each other. So it's very strange to me that they don't believe that a woman should at least have a moral obligation to not take the life of her child. And so the phrase of the Democrats used to be safe, legal, and rare. And Whoopi Goldberg said we needed abortion because we needed a safe place to do this so women wouldn't do these things. Again, I don't believe that ending abortion will lead to like mass women doing this, because there's a lot more access to birth control that women have that they didn't have in the past. Like there was women who wrote to Margaret Sanger talking about how they just couldn't imagine having another mouth to feed, because they had so many kids. They didn't have a way to stop it. But there are ways to do that, through birth control, through condoms, through not having sex. That's always an option. But there's also, it is harder for women to get fixed if they don't want to, have get their tubes tied and other stuff like that. If you're not of a certain age and your husband isn't for it, because a lot of doctors don't want to just up and do it because they don't want women to have regret. It's very strange that there's such a push for people get puberty blockers, but this is really hard to do apparently for some reason. But you're not entitled to that surgery, so if doctors don't want to do it, I understand that. So but maybe there's other ways to not have kids that weren't so available back in the past. But again, I want people to make better decisions. If you're going to talk about how important a woman's choice is, you have to hold her accountable for her choices. And you can't just keep having these conversations as if the baby doesn't exist, the child doesn't exist, and doesn't deserve any kind of rights. And even if we were concerned about the few handful of women who might try to do this illegally, um, well, if you find a woman who you believe is in such dire, desperate straits, that she would do that, that she would risk her life, like you'd have to be near suicidal desperate to do this. I would hope that you would try to get her some help, whether it's financial, mental, whatever, spiritual, whatever she needs, rather than wanting to take her to a butcher. If you feel that women who want to get an abortion are that mentally distressed that you believe that they'd be willing to hurt themselves, why do we drive them to a place where they get paid to kill your kids? I don't think that's moral or compassionate. So when people make those arguments, they need to kind of think them through what they're saying. Um, but the child still has a right to life regardless. We can't just make things not legal. We can't just make murder legal because people will still murder. We can't just make rape legal because people will still rape. We just have to prosecute people when they break the laws. So women out there, you do have agency. Make some good choices with your life. All right, that's my show for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like what I do here, please go to blacktnews.com. Check out some of those articles that I mentioned. Please also consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Whatever you can do, whether $25, $50. If you can do something up like 100 or something, I'd really, really appreciate it. Make sure that you're following me across different platforms. Know a lot of you like to watch it on Facebook, but if you do have a YouTube, please subscribe, like on YouTube and other places as well. I'm trying to get to a certain number on YouTube. Then I could I don't know how much they're going to let me monetize on YouTube and stuff, but you can start doing super chat and other stuff like that. That would really, really help me out. So find other people to tell them to watch Black Teen News, support Black Teen News. So go ahead and do that. Make sure that you guys check out different merch at the store, like this Be Better Not Bitter shirt. Really, really love that shirt. Got the My Money, My Business shirt. Already mentioned that. Make Crack Whack Again, Trump 2024. That one makes me laugh. Also, if you guys are in the Motor City area during the Motor City Comic Con, I will be at the convention. So if you guys want to catch me there and look at some of my books, if you don't know, I do write. I actually have over 30 books completed, but I have 15 that are published. So I think it was Valentine's Day I published my 15th book. So I have one nonfiction faith book. The other are like contemporary fantasy, action adventure, paranormal romance. I got Super Kid, which is like middle grade chapter books, and Super Kid 2. I have some picture books still working on, like illustrations and stuff. So you can always check me out and like on Amazon and stuff, and follow me. I do have a book website. If you go to blacktnews.com, it has a banner that'll lead you to my books and stuff. But I'm on Amazon. But if you want some like hard copies, well, I guess paperback copies and stuff, and want it signed, and just meet me or whatever, I will be at Motor City Comic Con. I will also be at another convention, an authors event in July called Once Upon a Book. So those are the things outside of like Black Tea where you can get a book or something. So if you're there, I'd love to meet you. And that's it for today. I'm looking forward to the news tomorrow. See if there's more lies from the Democrats regarding this issue. I hope they just go ahead and publish the opinion sooner rather than later, and not like hold it out for like 2 months since everybody like basically saw it. So let's let it go, let the hammer go down, and let us debate it among the states. God bless you guys.